What's up, everyone? I just wanted to go live and just kind of go through some slides like I was doing a Security Plus class. I just want to see how that's going to look and how that's going to work. Just going to want to welcome everybody. If anybody got any questions, just shoot them in the box. You can always interrupt me, switch subjects. I'm cool with that. Like I said, this is just a test, just seeing how it's going to look and how it's going to flow if I actually teach Security Plus classes on the fly. So as you see the slides, CompTIA Security Plus to Network Security Fundamentals, the sixth edition. I'll put the book in the description. So usually what I do is in class, I usually kind of go over one of the hacks that happen currently. Everybody's kind of familiar with the Casillas one, right? Once again, third party vendor not taking care of business and causing everyone to get hacked. Right? People, those MSPs actually use their services in those cassette softwares to actually monitors their clients' operations. Right? So it's a third party. So as part of Security Plus, one of the things we talk about is risk analysis on third party. I don't think a lot of people do that. I don't think a lot of people are still doing that. That's one of the big deals in cybersecurity is managing your third party assets, making sure they're okay. So I say once again, this is like chapter one of CompTIA Security Plus. We're just gonna kind of go through it, and like I said, I probably put all these in a playlist for Security Plus. What's up, Helmet Chili Gaming? Glad you could join me. So like I said, let's kind of go through the slides and we'll talk about each one and just kind of drill down into them a little more. Challenges of securing information. We know what those are, right? Securing information, no simple solution, many different types of attacks. You see those every time. Defending against those attacks is often difficult, right? Because when you do a network, right, it's the weakest link. You gotta do the databases, the networking, the web, the application. What's up, Dave W? Glad you can join me. Just trying to see if I can just teaching Security Plus Chapter 1, just kind of doing over the net to see how that would feel and how that would look. So, like I said, no simple solution, many different types of attacks. Defending against attacks is often difficult, right? I always get upset. I think the red team get all the love, right? You get the hackers, you get the swordfish, you get the movies, but defending against attacks is often difficult, right? Now we're talking about nation states. How do you defend your computer system against nation states? Right. So now, I was surprised Biden in his executive order, he named zero trust as a technology or framework. That was real, I guess, different and rare for me. So once again, we're just going to kind of flow through these Security Plus sides, just a high level class for if you want to get Security Plus or just talk about security in general. Today, security attacks, remotely controlling the car, tampering with aircraft systems. Of course, these slides are a little they talking about Yahoo, USB, flash drives, malware, voting machines, VTech security breaches, stolen data. I mean, we don't have SolarWinds and Casillas, right? IRS fraud, and Hyatt hotel corporations. So if you go back and look at my videos, I try to at least I do cybersecurity news. So I talk about at least 3 hacks happening or ransomware or something every week, right? It's just getting crazy, right? I'm watching this while wrapping up a client monthly security briefing. All good, John Wheeler. Chime in on my side. Or if you got some questions for yours you want to ask me, you can ask me too on your briefing. um, so widespread vulnerabilities, configuration issues, poorly designed software, hardware limitations, and enterprise-based issues. Because Leo, keep it taking, he was interviewing somebody. He said software needs to be designed properly with security in it. I agree with that 100%. The sad part about it is that's not going to happen anytime soon. Why? You get paid on software on features, right? If you're Facebook, Instagram, you want the coolest features. You don't think about security until you start making money. People forgot Facebook didn't make money for the first 10 years they were in business. So if you're not making money, do you really care about security? Right? How do you pay for security if you're not making money? Right? So if you look at Snapchat out, there was at least 3, 4, 5 years before they made any money, right? So if you're not making any money, security is not a problem. You're worried about features and how you're going to get paid off of that, right? So that's really what you're going to focus on. So 2 is part of there is widespread vulnerabilities. I mean, you got ransomware as a service. So that's finding all your vulnerabilities out there and how you're getting attacked, right? Once again, configuration issues. I mean, all the time you see people on AWS, they're leaving their database open to the internet. Then somebody just goes in and it just takes all their data out their database, right? And the last one is super big, especially enterprise-based issues. So when you're in enterprise, right, and you got 1,000, 10,000, and 30,000 people, how do you handle all that, right? How do you lock that down as a service? How do you do security for an enterprise-based company, right? That's why CISOs get paid all the money, right? Difficulties in defending against attacks, universally connected devices, right? That's IoT. Increased speed of attacks. Right now, if you're late on a patch, the hackers are going to be all over you. Greater sophistication of attacks. You talking about Kaseas and SolarWinds, right? Super sophisticated nation states. How do you handle that, right? How do you mitigate that, right? Everybody who knows me knows I'm a stead guy. I do federal compliance. So let me get a little bit background on myself. I've been in IT for 35 years. I'm in my 50s. I've done everything from programming, DBA, web admin, manager. So my current jobs, I do federal compliance from a state organization, right? So we report to the government, so they tell us what level of security we need to do on those systems, right? So that's my background, and that's what I bring to the table. Availability and simplicity of attack tools. So that's a combination, right? So if you go to, there's tools you can get off the shelf, right? Linux tools. You just click a button, right? You're doing denial of service attack. Do you understand what a denial of service attack is, or you just hitting a button, right? Most people just hit the button and the attack happens, right? So you're doing the simplicity of the attack, right? Versus the sophistication of the attack just by hitting a button, right? There's so many tools you can get off the shelf now, right? They're script kiddies. They don't really know what they're running. So what do I mean by script kiddie? It's somebody who's actually just running scripts or hitting a button or just running tools, but they really don't know what that is, right? So I could tell a script kiddie I'm on a Unix box, but he's running Windows commands, right? So I'm not nervous. Or I'm looking at my Linux box, he's running SQL injection commands, right? So therefore, I know he's a script kiddie. He really doesn't know what he's doing, right? Right. So when you see somebody progressing, okay, I got a Linux box. Now I see he's doing Linux commands, right? Now I know I'm running this version of Linux 6, but he's running CVEs or current patches that he's running things that I know that's been hacked. That could be hacked if this box hasn't been patched, right? So that's how you can tell the different levels of the attack. Availability and simplicity of the attack, faster detection of vulnerabilities, delays in security updates, weak security updates distribution, distributed attacks, use of personal device, and user confusion. Right, users required to make difficult security decisions with little or no instruction. Right, so any security you do should be easier, right, for your users to implement. If your users are struggling to implement your security, right, it's not done very well. And use of personal devices, enterprise have difficulty providing security for a wide array of personal devices. Right? So I tell my clients, don't let people use personal devices. Get them corporate devices. If they need a corporate phone, get them a corporate phone. If they need a corporate laptop, give them a corporate laptop. Even our vendors, If we have vendors, give them corporate equipment. Why? I know the security level of the devices I give to my users, my vendors, my third party people, right? Or if I can't afford that, I need to make sure my third party vendors are at the security level I'm at. What GPOs they're using, what antivirus they're using, right? I need to know what security they level on because we need to be on a security level, right? You're only good as your weakest link. So if your third party or your offshore guys or whatever is not using the proper security, right? We've seen it already. That's the third party hack Kaseya's them do. They're gonna get you through your third party and come get you, right? So you need to make sure all your vendors, third party, security people, everybody's touching your network. You need to understand what level of security those devices are at, right? So that's a huge deal, huge deal. So what is information security, right? Before defense is possible, one must understand exactly what security is, how security relates to information security, the terminology that relates to information security, right? What is that? My company uses VDIs for some of our third party. That's cool, but you still gotta make sure you understand the settings that the VDI is set up, right? I'm actually looking at AWS and Azure's VDI, and I got some set of slides where we're going to talk about how to make sure the VDIs, or we're going to look at AWS's kind of work group workstation. Is similar to VDI, where you can spin up a workstation in the cloud. We're going to go through to show how you make sure, even though that's a workstation, even that's in AWS, we're gonna make sure it's FedRAMP compliant, right? And those checks on that VDI or that remote desktop is at a certain level that we understand to make sure we're doing security right, even on the VDI and in our remote desktop. That's a good start, Dave. Still gotta make sure those settings are set right on that VDI. So understanding security. Security is to be free from danger is the goal. The process is to achieve that freedom. Of course, you know that sounds cool. What's up, Maddox? How are you doing? What's up, Dave W? Welcome. As securities increase, convenience is often decreased. The more secure something is, the less convenient it may become to use. Right. So since I worked for DoD, when I was at DoD, we made our users use 14 character password, two upper, two lower, and two special characters. Right. For a lot of you new, I worked for DoD for 12 years, 11 to 12 years. Right. So I usually come at it once again from a federal perspective. So a 12 character password is super secure, but what? It's less convenient. My users hate me, right? But we were more secure, right? So as you get more secure, it's less convenient, right? When you leave your desk, all right, I'm gonna do a 15-minute lockout, right? So if you're reading something, your computer gonna be locked out, right? Less convenient, right? But more secure. So there's a give and take in there. But don't get me wrong, I do understand there's a business to run. I do understand that's how they make money, right? So there's a balance you have to do, right? I could be super secure if I unplug it from the network, right? But if I unplug it from the network, we're gonna make $0, right? So there is a balance with that, right? More secure, less convenient, right? So we trying to get that sweet spot right in the middle, super secure, but you can still do your work, right? So that's the balance we want to provide. Information security is the task of securing information that's in a digital format, manipulated by a microprocessor, preserved on a storage device, transmitted over a network. Information security goes to ensure the protective measures are properly implemented to ward off an attack and prevent the total collapse of a system when a successful attack occurs. Right, so information again manipulated by a microprocessor, preserved in the storage, transmitted over a network. Right, that's usually the triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Right, those are the three areas of the triangle of security that really matters. Right, so information security goal once again to ensure that the proactive measures are properly implemented to ward off an attack and prevent the total collapse of systems when a successful attack occurred. So there was two things in there, right? Hopefully we can block it, we can stop it, but the other thing is to prevent the total collapse of a system when a successful attack occurs, right? So if I'm attacking this on my network, can I just shut off that part of the network? If I'm an attack and I know it's ransomware, can I block that, spin up my DR and my coop site, run my coop site till I figure out what's going on in my production site, right? So the attack has happened on my network, but I done spun up my DR site so I can continue to operate, right? Because my malware or my Kaseya stuff is not down there, right? So I can spin up that my DR site, continue to work till I figure out what's going on with my production site, right? And prevent the total collapse of the system when a successful attack occurs, right? So those are some of the things you need to worry about in the security realm. This is the CIA triangles I was just talking about. 3 types of information protections, often called the CIA. Confidentiality, only approved individuals may access information. Integrity, information is corrected and unaltered. Availability, information is accessible to authorized users, right? Because I used to celebrate, okay, we get a denial of service attack, right? My confidentiality is good, my integrity is good. They're really not on my box, I just can't operate. But right, if we do a DDoS, denial of service, right, I'm still failing the A, right? The availability. The information is not accessible to authorized users, right? So then we got to figure out what the network guys, can we fail over? Can we get with Akamai, who just got, had that issue and shut down that whole network? Can we get with Akamai to block the traffic out on the internet so it doesn't get to our boxes, right? We spin up different IPs and map those into DNS, right? And block that traffic out on the internet. So those are a myriad of things to talk about in the cybersecurity realm. So the big 3 in information security, cybersecurity, on any test is the CIA. Confidentiality, only approved individuals may access information. Integrity, information is corrected and unaltered. And availability, information is accessible only to authorized users, right? So those are the big 3. We call this the security. What's up, lads? Glad you can make it. Just going over some Security Plus slides, just checking it out. See if I want to teach some Security Plus online and just kind of see how that will go. So we call this the security onion, information security layers. That's called a security onion. Like in the middle is the CIA triangle once again. Confidential, integrity, and availability. Then right outside of that is products, what kind of products you're going to buy, especially if you're talking about zero trust. People, hopefully your people are trained, security awareness. Hopefully they understand they shouldn't be clicking on links, for this phishing and the spear phishing and the social engineering attacks, right? Hopefully your people are trained. And at the top of that too is policies and procedures, right? Policies and procedures let you know management has bought in, management's talk to your work. So if I need to go snitch on somebody, right, I got the policies and procedures so I can back that up, right? Sometimes your users, they think you inconvenience them, right? We were just talking about that, right? More security, less convenient, right? So they go to management and tell on you, right? So if we have policies and procedures, me as a security analyst, me as a consultant, I know what level of security the company wants to do. And 2 is I can show that to the employees or to the people I'm working with to say, this is what the executive leadership wants the level of this organization to be at. And 2, once again, I do federal, so that those policies are going to talk about HIPAA for a hospital, PSI. I do a little bit with the IRS. That's called Pub 1075. I do FISMA, which is DOD, right? That tells you the level of CIA that they want all those 3 things to be at. High, moderate, or low. What do you think is life-threatening, right? Most systems are moderate, right? But if you're talking about a radar system, high, something to deal with nuclear stuff, right? What up, Anonymous? Glad you could join me. So two is those policies and procedures going to tell you what level the organization wants to be in, right? Shout out to the people. I suck at writing policies and procedures. Uh, but once again, that tells you what level the organization's in, right? And a lot of organizations struggle with that, right? So you as a consultant, okay, let's go through our data. Okay, is it moderate? Is it high? High, is it life or death? Is it low? Is it just PII? If we got hacked, what's going to happen to our organization? Are we going to get a big fine? Who's going to get fired, right? So sometimes you need to go to your data to figure out high, medium, high, moderate, or low, right? Classifying your data is probably one of the number one things you need to do. And two is, where is that data at, right? Most companies have data sprawl and don't really understand where their data at is in your organization. So that's huge. So in there is products form. The security around the data may be as basic as door locks, complicated as network security programs. Two is, and I suffer with this a lot, is in the security program you have physical security. Do you need to badge in the door? Do you need to badge in the computer? Are your computers in cages, right? Or you got webcams, right? So that's the physical control of locking down your computer system. Now, when you go into any medium data center, they got webcams. Their cages are in locks. A lot of times, if they don't have 24/7, the cameras are being monitored 24/7, right? So that's the physical part of that. People, those implement and properly use security products to protect them. Once again, policies and procedure, the plan and policies established by enterprise to ensure that people correctly use their products, right? So if you got products and people aren't trained how to use the products, are the products any good? Right? So training your people is huge. Make sure they understand what the product's for. And two is part of the policies is, what's the repercussions if you break policy or you do something stupid or you share your password with your colleague, right? In the policy should state what is the ramifications for breaking those rules, right, and procedures. Information security terminology. What is an asset? Item that has a value. A threat, the type of action that has the potential to cause harm. A threat actor, a person or element with power to carry out a threat. Right? So how does your firm or organization make money, right? So there's two things, right? If you have a machine and it's collecting all your credit card money, right, and you getting $2 million on that computer, right? The computer costs $10,000, but the assets worth $2 million because it's collecting $2 million worth of credit cards. If that machine goes down, we can't get our $2 million, right? Right. So there's a physical asset, right? Then there's a process and business asset, right? How much does that computer bring in, right? So if I got a $20,000 computer and it's collecting all the money, I might put $5,000 worth of security on that computer, right? If that computer's worth $10,000 and it's collecting $10,000 worth of credit cards or smart contracts, or everybody's into Bitcoin now, I'm not gonna put $50,000 on a computer that's only collecting $20,000 and only worth 10, right? So you got to balance that, right? Security per money is not infinite, right? If I have infinite, I could get the best products, the best software, right? But if I'm gonna put $1 million worth of security on a $10,000 computer, right? That doesn't make sense, right? I'm sure everybody agrees with that. So we got to balance that, right? So you got to understand what your assets worth and what that asset's bringing in for the company. Information security. Attacker can go through the fence hole. The fence hole actually is the vulnerability. The threat actor can actually go through the fence to get through the fence hole. The theft of the scooter is the threat. Stolen the scooter is the risk, and the scooter is the asset. Right. So let me do that again. Scooter is the asset. The scooter getting stolen is the risk. The threat of the theft of the scooter is the threat. The thief is the threat actor. the attack vector is going through the fence, and the fence holding the fence is the vulnerability, right? So that's kind of it. So when you got a computer, what's vulnerability? You got your foreign assets, right? The scooter is going to be the credit card information on there, right? And the threat of stealing the credit card information is the scooter, right? If you switch it around to real world stuff. If anybody got any questions, just throw them in the chat. I'm just kind of seeing if I like going through these slides as part of a Security Plus training. I might reach out to y'all to see if y'all like it. So that's kind of the information security component analogy. So that's what the slide's calling it. So information security terminology, a vulnerability is a flaw or weakness that allows a threat agent to bypass security. Threat vector, the means by which an attack can occur. A risk, a situation that involves exposure to some type of danger. The risk response techniques, right? So when you really deal with security, because you can't block every security, or there's going to be some vulnerabilities, or there's going to be some risk, right? What is the risk response technique? I can accept the risk. Risk is acknowledged, but no steps are taken to address. I can transfer the risk, transfer it to a third party, an insurance company. A lot of people getting ransomware insurance out there, right, to mitigate your cost of something happening. Avoid the risk, identifying risk, but making the decision not to engage in that activity, right? So instead of we're going to do Bitcoin, but we figure out it's too risky, we don't have the programmers to actually lock it down and do a new coin, so we avoid getting into that business altogether, right? Mitigation, attempt to address the risk by making the risk less serious, right? So that's kind of what I do, right? So instead of, if you can't do encryption at rest, you might say, well, I have this firewall rule, or in my actual development code in Java, and I actually can encrypt the data in the Java, then save it in a database, right? So it's encrypted at rest. The database is not doing it. Code is doing it. So that'll be me mitigating that risk, right? Or this web server has this vulnerability, but I got this web application firewall that's going to block that vulnerability so you can't get to it, right? That CVE is blocked. So that's one thing I really liked about SolarWinds is when the company that got hacked, the big security company, they actually gave out a snort file that actually had all the mitigated controls. For anything that red teams could do, they actually have a snort file that will block anything those files or programs could do, right? So that was actually mitigating that attack from them. So I thought that was nice for them to set it up. When do we separate OPS from cybersecurity, SOC, backups, updates, account lockouts? I think it really depends. From my point of view, it really depends on the size of the company. I think small companies, they lump all that together because they don't have a separate SOC team. So the security team does the SOC, the backups, updates, and they separate all that from operations, right? And from the cybersecurity SOC. So if you're a large company, you have a SOC. So they just really focus on red team attacks and signatures in the logs to get that. But from my point of view, to have a SOC, you got to be a big company. I only know big companies that have a SOC. I think now, though, with the internet, a lot of people are outsourcing their SOC activities. So I think a lot of medium companies will get that. Yeah, I would say that medium companies, 200 plus employees. And still, though, SOC is expensive. I mean, SOC software alone is probably $50,000 or $100,000. I mean, if you're talking about Splunk, I'm trying to think. I don't do a lot of SOC work, to be honest. I communicate with a SOC. I'm usually blue team helping the organization lock down and meet their federal compliance. So SOC usually communicates to us when they think we've been breached, right? So that's kind of a separate operation for us. Security onions, so huge. So yeah, there's a ton of those. But like I said, I only really see big companies with SOCs. I mean, I've worked in a lot of organizations. I actually worked at some big organizations that really outsize their SOC. Because to be honest, what I see is most people can't do the easy stuff. So if you can't do the easy stuff, your SOC is not. You're not gonna have enough information going to your SOC to be able to notify you or something, right? Because your security, onion, and what's right? They usually look at the logs, right, to get the log files to tell them the signatures of what's been happening. Most people don't have the events coming out their logs to feed their SOC to get the right information to catch the nation state, right? Because you got to have all your events, log on, log off, switching to a privileged users. Then two is, a lot of times they want you to keep that data for 5, 6, or 10 years so you can go back and figure out what happened. A lot of people can't afford to keep that space. Now with AWS and Azure, their code site, keeping logs is a lot cheaper. But I think people are just not really getting a handle on doing that. The terms, an example in the Scooter scenario. Asset, the scooter is similar to employee database. A threat, stealing of the scooter is stealing of the data. Threat actor or thief is the attacker of the hurricane. Right, it's, hurricanes and national disasters could take down our data center, right? Once again, we need to pay a little homage to the physical security, right, and the physical attacks. Attack vector, a vulnerability, hole in the fence, software defect. Because if you look at a lot of those ransomware, they're actually attacking software defects or CVEs that have not been patched, or some new CVEs people weren't aware of. An attack vector climbed through the hole in the fence, access the web server password through a flaw in the operating system. Right, so there's a ton of flaws and things we have to keep track of and patch to kind of figure out what's going on. Likelihood, possibility of scooter stolen. The likelihood is a virus infection. So when you do security, you got to figure out the likelihood of this happening, right? The likelihood of why I need to do this patch. Because anything you do, even for patch Tuesday, there's a cost to it, right? So you got to get your admins, your testers, your infrastructure, right? So when a patch comes on, theoretically, even if you do patch Tuesday, you want to test it in development to make sure it's not breaking into your applications, right? So all that stuff has a cost to it, right? So what is the cost? What is the man hours? What's the FTE of all that, right? So once again, the likelihood, the probability of a scooter being stolen, likelihood of a virus infection, risk, stolen scooter, virus infection, or stolen data, right? So what is the risk? So you got the likelihood, but then what is the risk of that for a company, right? Because when you talk to managers, to be honest, they don't really care about the vulnerability or the Linux or that. Really, they want to know what's the risk of that getting hacked to get their information stolen. And two is, what is the dollar amount related to that risk to get that fixed, right? The more and back is there a mitigating control you can do cheaper to fix that up in your whole infrastructure, right? So that all goes together. You got to tie a bow around it all when you're talking to management. Because especially once you get to CFO, even a lot of CIOs that didn't come up through programming, they are more dealing with budgets and personnel. A lot of those guys really don't understand risk, computers, and cybersecurity. They want to understand now so they won't end up on the news, but technically they don't know what a lot of that stuff is. Information security can be helpful in preventing data theft, thwarting identity theft, avoiding the legal consequences of not securing your information, maintaining productivity, and foiling cyber terrorism. Right? So that at a high level, that's what cybersecurity people do, right? Prevent data theft, thwarting identity theft, avoid legal consequences of not securing your data. Right? Because if you mess your data up and you're a private company, there will be a class action lawsuit. Right? If anybody remember Equifax, they do credit cards and information backgrounds. The CIO got fired. The CIO, CEO, and the CISO over the security group, all three of those guys got fired. Why? Their stock price dropped. Right? So when you're talking about a big cybersecurity hack, man, we're talking about your stock price dropping, which could be, depending on the size of the company, it could be easily a couple $100 million, right, for stock price. Now they blaming cybersecurity for that, right? So that's why people are paying attention now, right? Preventing data theft. So prevention is really, at the top of the line on how you want to do it, right? Preventing data from being stolen is often the primary objective of organization information security. Enterprise data thefts involve stealing proprietary business information. Personal data thefts involve stealing credit cards. Right, so enterprise data, the Chinese actually stole part of Google's search algorithm. Right, if you Pepsi and Coke, right, it's the recipe. Right, so when you're dealing nation states, they don't want money; they want intellectual property. The Chinese stole Boeing's jets architecture plans. They go to the airplane symposium show and they looking at a jet that the Chinese has look pretty much like their jet. Why? They stole their $100 million plans. Right? So a lot of times you just think of money and the long game is stealing intellectual property. Right? Or stealing state secrets from the United States. Where are your bases? What are you planning to do? What are you trying to do with other nation states, right? To affect the economy of the United States. Who are you trading with? Who are you not going to trade with? Who are you going to attack, right? All that's intellectual property that must be protected by cybersecurity. Once again, I'm just kind of going through the slides and doing what I do. So if you have any questions, just put them in the box and I'll ask them. Um, Thwarting identity theft, stealing another's personal information, usually using it for financial gain. Example, once again, SSNs, creating a new credit card account to charge purchase and leaving them unpaid, file fraudulent tax returns, right? So that's identity theft. So that's huge. One guy told me the next big jobs he thinks are coming out in privacy. I'm gonna do a video because you have a security program. He believes in the next 2 or 3 years, as part of your security program, just as big is gonna be your privacy program. He believes California doing GDPR. He thinks a lot of states are gonna have their own privacy regulations. Then you throw HIPAA in there, some other stuff, right? So now you got a ton of different privacies. Then two is the guy, I think I'm gonna try to interview him. He actually has overseas divisions. So now we talk about overseas GDPR is over there. Then he said with Brexit, Great Britain has different privacy laws than the rest of the EU. Then they're doing some business in Africa. He said they're kind of wide open in Africa as far as privacy. But when you put all those together, those are like 10 different privacy regulations you got to figure out how to handle as part of your security program. And I always kind of overlook privacy. To me, that's a small part in the cybersecurity program, but that's getting bigger now as part of identity theft is that privacy. So people think that's going to be big. What do you think about cleaning internet tracks being a bigger business? So when you say internet tracks, I'm guessing you mean the logs. Oh no, I think that's a bigger business because if you look at GDPR, Facebook's struggling because when you delete Facebook, they don't really delete your profile. They keep it out there. So if you try to log back in a year later, you can really bring up your profile with the same pictures. AKA, they didn't delete anything. GDPR says when you say delete it, you gotta physically delete it. Right? Then part of cleaning internet tracks, since I do federal work, there's a lot of things with the cloud vendor. When you get off their box, they want you to actually lease the whole box. They supposed to drill holes in that disk and send me an affidavit stating that that was done. Right? So GDPR and federal stuff is bringing a little stuff different. Right, so when I deal with AWS, I'm supposed to reach out to them because I leased the whole server. So after the end of my lease, they supposed to degouge it, which is a special erase by the federal. I think it's supposed to erase it 7 times and send it. It's supposed to zero right over the whole disk, like 7 or 10 times. So, because when you erase something the first time, you just delete the pointers. The data's still on the disk, right? So DGALS physically overwrites that disk like 10 times. So AWS Azure is actually supposed to send me an affidavit stating that they've done that because it's federal data on there, right? So now you're right. It's getting a little different when you talk about cleaning tracks for that, right? So then two, as a agency or federal agencies, I'm responsible to make sure that gets done. And the weird thing too is there's a lot of paperwork still done. A lot of federal agencies says that your paper has to be shredded. I think a quarter-inch cut crossways. Then two, depending on the data, if it's classified, they actually want you to pulp it. I'm like, you seriously have to sign off and get it pulped. They start backtracking on that a little bit. I can find it. You could Google it. It was too expensive. Like, dude, we can't. We do a lot of paper, man. We can't pulp it, right? So there's a lot of things. I think you're right. I think they're trying to figure out what that is in a new play and then in the new internet. What does that look like? I know some celebrities have paid to get or try to get photos erased off the net. Yeah, that's a different ball game because a lot of times too, celebrities like kids, you pose nude or somebody's got some information about you, right? There are teams that go around and do that because if you look at some of the big bloggers like I can't forget her name. They get cease and desist letters, right? So part of that is your legal team too, right? So you got with the federal and GDPR, right? Then you got your legal team, right? So if y'all have lawyers, y'all need to lawyer up so your legal team can send cease and desist letters to the top gossip YouTubers. That thing with Charlemagne the God, he has some stuff in his past. He was sending out cease and desist letters. When my man Mama's Cooking came after him, right? And people start digging. Charlemagne's legal team starts sending cease and desist letters and telling people to take stuff off their internet. So you gotta get your legal team in the mix too if you're gonna to help you with the photo erase stuff. So once again, thwarting identity theft, stealing users' personal information, usually using it for financial gain. My man just brought up celebrity stuff, stealing person's SSNs or getting photographs removed, right? Because a lot of people are concerned because um, one kid was very upset because his mom posed on OnlyFans and some of the kids in high school figured that out and took screenshots of it, right? So now this kid is trauma because people's got naked pictures of his mom, right? So how do you control photo erased over the net, right? And I tell people, if you can't live with it, don't put it out there, right? That's the ultimate goal. But if it gets out there, how do you get it off the internet? And the thing is, it's almost impossible because people take screenshots of that. If you got something good, you're not getting a link. You taking a screenshot and you putting that in your personal. But then once again, you get your legal team cease and desist and you start suing people. Avoiding legal consequences. We talked about a few of these. Health and Hospital Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, HIPAA. Sarbanes-Oxley is financial, 2002. Graham Leach-Biley is also financial. Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. If you have credit cards, you gotta store those at a certain way so you don't have to get hacked. A friend of mine actually had a restaurant. His restaurant credit card got hacked. Visa actually made him pay $25,000 to do a forensic analysis to make sure it was stolen. And his friend actually hooked up his network on his restaurant, so he's actually thinking about suing his friend. I told him, man, this is people's data. You can't play. You need to get people professionally setting up small networks, right? And I think Maddox brought that up too with the security onion. If you're taking credit cards in a small business, if you can't take credit cards, you could go out of business. So you need to make sure your small networks are set up appropriately, right? So at least you're not negligent, right? And like we just talked about, state notifications, California Database Security Breach Notification Act of 2003. And I think a lot of states are trying to get their name out, so they're going to try to do their own privacy initiative. Who do we take cybersecurity direction from in the industry with fraud and breaches? That is an excellent question, Anonymous. Hopefully, that's coming from your CIO and your CISO. No, that's perfect. No, hopefully it's coming from your CIO and your CISO. Hopefully, you report to a government agency. Like I said, I do the IRS. I do a ton of IRS work. They tell us what level of security. If you're doing HIPAA for a hospital, they tell you. But if you're a small business, like you said, with Rifle Bridge, your CIO and CISO needs to come up with the directions from your firm. A lot of people tease me. I'm a STIG guy. The STIGs are pretty quantitative. They tell you what to put on, what to click. It tells you what level of security. It tells you what policies it rolls up to. Now, granted, it's hard, but I tell people security hard. So that's one reason I'm a STIG guy. I don't have to guess. This is what I want to do. I know the level of security is going to be at the level of DoD. So even if I get hacked, at least I can show them all the work I've done, the STIGs, the vulnerabilities, the poem. So at least if we get sued, we won't consider it to be negligent because we put in work, right? Security is you got to put in work. So that's what I recommend, Anonymous. If you don't know, CIS, STIGs, NSA, there's a ton of compliance checks out there. I think every small medium organization, PCI, should pick something and adhere to it. Then, like I said, it's hard out here. It's not easy. So that's my recommendation. Most people don't do it, Anonymous, because it's hard and it sucks, right? And sometimes, too, it's a little costly. But if I get hacked and I'm sitting and getting sued, or hopefully Equifax so big, they were in front of Congress, right, stuttering. So if I go there, at least I want to say, these are our checks, this is what we did. It took a nation state to hack me, right? I got something at least to hang my hat on if I get called into court. Maintaining productivity. These are old. Post-attack cleanup diverts resources away from normal activity, time, money, and other resources. Table 1.6 shows the cost of the attack. They said number of employees, 100. Average workers, $25. Number of employees to combat that they got one, so they said that's 46,000. So they said if you got 1,000 employees, that's 222. The reason I know that's low is if you call in Mandy and one of the big boys, they junior people cost $250 an hour for them to look at stuff. So if you're at a government level hack, you're gonna at least spend $1 million easy, right? And that's before you fix something. That's before you got a new server or start patching it. Most of that's going to be forensic to figure out where your data went. Foiling cyber terrorism. Cyber terrorism is a premeditated, politically motivated attack against information, computer systems, computer programs, and data. It's designed to cause a panic attack, provoke violence, result in financial catastrophe, made to be directed target at banking industry, military, power plants, air traffic controllers, and water system. So the last three we probably been hit. The water system in Florida was hit. We know banking's been hit. There was a couple power plants been hit. The only thing I'm not aware of been happening so far is the air traffic controllers have not been hit yet, right? So when you're cyber terrorism, right, those are usually nation state attacks, so that are premeditated. Some are politically, right? So what is the answer to that, right? What is the line where somebody attack us and we actually send our army, we put boots on the ground, right? There's a level for that. What is that? What is the attack before? What does somebody have to do to us before we put boots on the ground? Is that shut down our financial system? Shut down our electricity? But there's something to do that we're going to put boots on the ground. So who are the threat actors? A threat actor is a generic term used to describe individuals who launch attacks against other users of their computers. Most have a goal of financial gain. Financial cybercrime is often divided into two categories. The first category is focused on the victim. The second category on enterprise and government, right? So I would have made those three categories. Enterprise is different and government is different, right? So those are the three levels, right? Different groups of threat actors can very widely be based on attributes, funding, and resources, whether they're internal or external to the enterprise or corporation, and intent or motivation. And the other part is, are they actually being employed by a government, right? There's a lot of government APT groups out there, advanced persistent threats that are funded by governments to attack the United States, Great Britain. Don't be mistaken now. We got our own APTs attacking them, right? It's not one way, right? We got our teams, right? We got our smart people attacking they smart people, right? So it's just not one way. Like we talked about earlier, script kiddie. Individuals want to attack a computer, yet they lack the knowledge of computers and network to do so. They download an automated hacking software scripts from website. Over 40% of attacks require low or no skill. That's the scary part right there, right? Over 40% of attacks require low or no skills. Yeah, Anonymous, I want all the pointed questions. Put all the pointed questions in the chat. I want them all. Two, so that's the high level right there. No skill, 13%, 15% high skill. Low skill is 28, moderate skill is 44. Is there a messenger you would prefer to use? Signal, WhatsApp, or Tele? To be honest, Helman, I'm just so old and so jaded. I just use Facebook Messenger, and I just assume I'm being followed and listened to. To be honest, if I want to do something that I don't want to listen to, I get a special phone and generate my own keys and send the other person the keys off band so they have them. I expect all of those to be actually hacked and to be followed. I don't trust any of those apps because, to be honest, all those apps, especially ones in the United States, if the FBI gets a warrant, they're gonna turn over their information. Because I think WhatsApp was complaining that the FBI told them they need to get their stuff right. So if you get a Pfizer warrant, they're gonna snitch on you. Even if they didn't get the other information, they're gonna give them keys to listen to your conversation. Faxmatics, not WhatsApp, but I think they all suck. And I think if the United States put the full weight of the United States behind it, FBI, CIA, whoever, they're coughing up that information. So I just assume I'm being listened to. But once again, Helmet, I'm 50 plus, so I'm jaded. I've been in this game a long time. Hacktivists, attackers who attack for ideological reasons that are generally not well defined as a cyber terrorism motivation. Example, hacktivists breaking into a website and changing its content, disabling a website belonging to a bank because the bank stopped accepting payments that were deposited in accounting belonged to the hacktivist. Yeah, because shout out to Anonymous. They actually broke into the Ku Klux Klan headquarters 4 years ago and start releasing names. So I did a video on that. So sometimes the activists, they do some good. I think there's been a number of things that they attacked governments for. They believe LGBTQ violations, racist violations. Sometimes I do think they overstep, but So those are some things that hacktives actually do. All facts. True about Pegasus. Pegasus, of course, was attacking a lot of world leaders, taking pictures of. But Pegasus has been out for a while. It's 10 years old. I think they actually updated the software. If you actually look at 60 Minutes, they did. They actually talked to the Israel company that actually invented Pegasus, and they were actually kind of a little evasive and wouldn't ask any questions. But we've been spying on government leaders, and they've been spying on us for at least 10 years. I wouldn't call it sitting ducks, but yeah, I mean, for me, I don't do anything of value that I think anybody would want to hack me for. I do have some skeleton in my closets, but they come out. I'm cool with it. I don't have anything crazy. But yeah, Helmet. I mean, too, like we talked about, is that person or resource they believes has to have some value for them to come after you, right? So you got to be the nephew of a world leader working for a big company they think is valuable, or you connected, right? They just don't randomly come after people now. Now they randomly get information, but as they sift through the information, they start adding values to the targets or the targets you might could get to for them. So it's not something they randomly do. And when I'm thinking about taking my things from the cloud and storing them on hard drives only, I think I'm going the other way, Helmut. The reason I'm going the other way is I think the security in the cloud is better than most companies and what most people can do personally. You can actually keep your keys for your hard drive on the cloud. So they would have to hack the cloud and actually hack your keys. You can actually handle the keys for AWS and Azure. So even if those get hacked, their back-end people don't have the keys. That sounds cool, but if you lose your keys, you're gonna be toast. I've seen small companies lose their keys. They thought they lost their keys and almost panicked because if you lose your keys, you lose all your data, right? So I think I might trust AWS or Azure can handle the key security better than I can, right? I appreciate it, Noah Wilson. I'm trying. I'm trying to get in the groove. Like I said, my channel, I've been going hard probably since December. I started in 2018, but my mom passed away, so I kind of shut it down for a minute. So my goal is, like I said, come and help the community, talk about anything. I tell anybody, I could talk anything about security except my salary. So I'm cool. So whatever you want to put in the chat with, I'm down. Damn, yes, I have to use the keys to get into my Shopify account. So yeah, to find definitely quality content. I appreciate that help. So yeah, so I'm actually thinking about going to AWS, and I'm gonna talk about this on another thing. They have three types of data centers: commercial, FedRAMP, and the FedRAMP commercial. Right. So FedRAMP commercials at a high level government cloud. In the government cloud, you have to be a government agency or be recommended by a government agency to be in that data center. The reason why you need to be in there, if everybody in the data center has security requirements, it's a little hard to hack into there. If I'm next to John or ProfessorBlackOps barbecue shack with no security, I could get on that VM and try to get to your part of the VM. I can try to hack from the root VM to the guest VM, right? Because there's no security on the shack. But if I'm in the government cloud, everybody has security because everybody's reporting to a government entity. So government cloud probably has the highest security, right? So every person is reporting to HIPAA, FISMA, OSHA. So everybody has security, right? So those are the three different levels of clouds and how they would do it. AWS or Azure in terms of better security service. Ooh, Dave W, that's a tough one. I think it depends on actually what you're doing with what cloud. I think Azure from their Office 365, a lot of their teams, I think is secure. AWS, I think since they've been in the game longer, as far as custom stuff, I like their security. And two, you got to remember it's a shared responsibility. So AWS and Azure is just going to handle the infrastructure or the platform, right? It's a shared responsibility. So if you're spinning up your own Linux boxes, right, all that security is yours, right? So depending on where you at, if you're infrastructure as a service or your platform as a service or your software as a service, depending on which one of those you do, right, you're going to have a level of security you're responsible for, Dave. So I think both of them is a pretty good. Usually it's how the users configure it, right? Because both of them are going to kind of give you I'm more AWS guy, give you a VPC, right? But if you leave your database open to the internet, that's not AWS or Azure fault. You didn't configure the things they gave you correctly. All right. So the weird thing is Capital One got hacked because the lady didn't lock down her database, right? So Congress actually tried to blame AWS. And AWS, they responded, it worked as designed. She designed it poorly. AWS like, that's not our fault. We gave her the tools. She was supposed to make that a private subnet, put her database on, put the security groups on there, and you know too, Dave, you got to put that MFA on it. At least if you got the database and it's on a private subnet, you at least got to put MFA on it. right? So you get the password, then they get that, right? So that's actually on them. So for me, Dave, I think for me, AWS and Azure, and we're gonna talk about too. They give you extra things to lock it down. You responsible for putting that on. So the question is, and I think Congress do, are they giving too much responsibility to the user? Right? I think not. That's why you pay consultants. That's why we should get paid well. That's why architects get paid well to help people architect that. Or you can actually pay AWS. They'll send a fleet of guys out to help you. Right? Maddox said that is true. I had a client to do the same thing with Azure. Yeah. So I mean, but two is we gotta have scanners and compliance and kind of help them. The cool thing is, especially AWS, they got a ton of compliance stuff where you can hit a button and it'll tell you if something open or what IP address is open to the outside and what they think the risk is of that level. Both of them, Azure and AWS, is just giving so many tools on that. Maddox said, I had a client to do that same. Sure, I created and locked down to only the work IP to have access. Everything is on them now. Yeah, that's true. You can do the going through the security group, like you said, work group IP and tools. And I did a couple of videos. Everybody's talking about zero trust, east and west traffic. How do you design your network? 3-tier. How do you control the traffic? How do you log that traffic? How do you do separations of duties? How do you handle privileged accounts versus non-privileged accounts? That's all of designing your AWS, Azure, Rackspace, Google. From a basic network design, all that stuff's into play, and you're responsible for that. So if you don't understand your responsibility, you're negligent. So they need to hire people and get it right. They need to hire Maddox. Get Maddox the bag to lock it down. But they need to hire people to get it locked down. Let's see. We talked about the hacktivism, breaking the websites, changing content, disabling it. So yeah, the bad thing about it is if your company does something that's hacktivism, Anonymous got some sharp people and they're worldwide. I was with a client. They were sending 50 petabytes of data just shut down a website, right? It wasn't no big attack, but they were sending stuff from Africa, France, and so every time we would try to bring the server up, the database would fill up and the logs would fill up. Because when you're moving that much data, but it's just too much data, right? So so we just shut down the services, it's like, hey, we got to get that figured out with them before we bring up anything. Because there's just too much data to handle. Helmet, chilling, gaming. If you don't understand your responsibility, you're negligent. That is right there. But most people don't understand that, Helmet. If you ask a regular business person, they don't really understand cybersecurity. Cybersecurity from a nation thing is just really, I think, really just popping up because of the hacks and ransomware. Most people could care about features. They don't care about security because you get paid by features. So I think since the last year and all the ransomware, people are starting to understand what negligent means. But if you talk to your average small business or somebody starting a company, they don't think about security till you get hacked or you see somebody kind of big get hacked, right? So I think we're turning a corner. I think we're getting better at it. So this is the big one. Nation state actors and attacker commissioned by the government to attack enemies and information systems may target foreign governments or even citizens of the government who consider hostile or threatening, known for being well resourced and highly trained, advanced persistent threat, multi-year intrusion campaigns that target highly sensitive economic, proprietary, and nation's secret information. Right, so that's it. I always tell that's my get out of jail free card. Oh, we got hacked by a nation state. It wasn't my fault. Right, so that's at the top of the line. It's sponsored by everybody. Talk about Russia, China, Japan, Iran. Right, but the first one was what? Us, Stuxnets. Us and Israel attacked Iran because Israel didn't want them to actually come up with nuclear stuff from their power plant. So we actually cracked their centrifuge on their plant so they couldn't do nuclear attack. So we actually opened up the door. So if you Google Stuxnet for some of y'all young guys, I'm gonna know we did the first attack. It was us and Israel against Iran, right? Because they didn't want them to have a nuclear bomb. So we created the first, I believe, the APT malware that look for a specific IOC controller to crack their centrifuge, then it was over with. Then the little companies, then what happened was the little countries figured out, okay, we can replicate this. I don't need a big army like the United States. I don't need to buy missiles. I don't need to buy F-16. I don't need a big army. I need about 50 nerds that can do what they do and attack us, right? So we started that. Remind me of Mobb Deep. I like that. No one is safe from here. I'm old. I love Mobb Deep. I might have to bring that up on my YouTube and go back when I was skinny. Hell, man, you making me smile. I was skinny back then, man. I gotta get in better shape. No, that is true. No one's safe, man. Cause now you don't need a big army. I don't need F-16. I don't need generals. I need about 20 people that can get busy on a machine and make some killer mouth. And the sad part about it is, we got ransomware as a service. I can just go on the dark web and rent ransomware as a service and just start encrypting everything in the United States. Electric system, finance system, right? And I rent it. And I just pay them the VIG of 30% for letting me use the ransomware as a service, right? So, but we started it with Stuxnet. But no one's safe. Insiders, this is huge. Employees, contractors, and business partners. I think that number is a little lower now. Over 58% of breaches are attributed to insiders. Healthcare workers may publicize celebrity health workers disgruntled over job termination. Stock traders might conceal losses and fake transactions. Employees may be bribed or coerced in stealing data before moving to a new job. Purple team and getting paid on both sides. Yeah, that's where I actually started out as purple team, man. My only issue with purple team addicts is I don't think they roll their sleeves up and get into networking, and I think networks is the foundation. So I'm claiming blue team, and I just bring a little purple with me, but that is true. Get paid on both sides. I think the purple team's a little soft on networking, and when you talk about zero trust is the movement of east and west traffic. So, but shout out to the purple team. But yeah, so insiders, how do your insiders? Are you giving them least privilege? Like, can they cut the check and cash the check, right? So your insiders, right, for that least privilege, you got to go through with your insiders and your executives to talk about what privileges should people have. And two is testing, right? This one lady, she's just like, oh yeah, in production, I could just change the account number on this check. I'm like, you can send that to your banking account. She goes, I know. I'm like, oh my God, what kind of access does she have? Right? So I think a lot of people are missing that. And that's really a manual process that you go over with your business people is, what's the least privilege does your employee need to do her job? Right? A lot of people always want excess privileges in case they need them for this one specific thing that happened 10 years ago, right? So, okay, you got a supervisor you need to have, but from your base employees, what's least privilege? Because you got to remember, those are the people that's going to click something and get their credentials hacked, get their credentials swiped and used, right? So you need to figure out what's the base privilege and permission that a person needs, all right? And when you talk about it, it's a little more because that's the permissions on your Windows drives. That's permissions on your Linux. That's the permission in a database. That's the permissions when you VPN from home, right? What's the least privilege, right? So you got to go through each one of those components, right? Now, a lot of people got Active Directory and they start on single sign-on, but that's one part, right? That's the part you need to start on, right? But you do need to make sure you go through everything in your company and talk about what privileges does a user have and what privileges does a user need. Facts, they are low-hanging fruit, and they're the ones that get you, right? Because they don't want to click on, because let's be real, those probably are some of the lowest paid people, client service, people on picking up the telephone, people doing these certain jobs, right? They just really want to get their check and go home, right? But those are the people that's, like you said, they're going to get hit first, because those are people getting the outside email inside to review customers' issues, talk about customer issues, right? So all of that's to together for that particular user. But once again, that's manual work. You got to figure out how to query your Active Directory, your LDAP, or what you're using with your permissions to get those out to the supervisors, to get to the supervisors to look in and says, oh yes, this is her, this is what she needs to work. Then right, you as a security group needs to figure out, okay, why do they have admin? Why do they have root? Why do they have theoretically nobody should have root, but you get the point, right? The people that have those should be 2, 3 people at the most, right? And two is if those people have it, we need to be logging every command they're doing, right, for the back end, right? So the SOC can look at it and review it, right? But those are the hard working stuff you need to get to and get to work on to figure out what's happening. Right, threat actors on the screen, competitors launch attacks against opponent's system to steal classified information, organized crime, moving from traditional criminal activities to more rewarding and less risky. Brokers sell knowledge of information and vulnerabilities to other attackers or governments. Cyber terrorism, attack on a nation state infrastructure to cause a disruption and panic among those citizens, right? So those are the kind of four: competitors, organized crime, brokers, and cyber terrorism. Defending against attacks, 5 fundamental security principles of defense: layering, limiting, diversity, obscurity, and simplicity, right? And we're going to go on each one. There's a slide for each one. If your security is so complicated, most people won't figure out how to use it or they're going to mess up configuring it right. So you want to make sure your stuff is simple, easy to use. I call that elegant. I love to see security that's done elegantly, right? Just enough, easy to use, but tough, multi-layers, just something elegant, right? Layering, we call it security onion again. Information security must be created in layers. A single defense mechanism may be easy to circumvent, making it unlikely attacker can break through all defense. Layer security approach, also called defense in depth, can be useful in resisting a variety of attacks and provides the most comprehensive protection, right? And that's really what zero trust is. If you look at it, right, it's layers of securities on top of layers to check stuff, right? What about the central bank-backed digital currency coming, trying to be more secure than crypto or stay in control? I'm actually going to do video. You correct. I'm actually going to do the top 10 attacks on crypto and blockchain. But yeah, I think trying to be more secure. I think too is people are trying to move a little differently from the government because I love economics. Part of economics is controlling your flow of cash for inflation and deflation. If you do crypto, a country can't control their inflation because you control that by the M1, M2, and M3 money supply. So I don't think you can do that with crypto because a government, let me retract that. A lot of governments are spinning up their own crypto, but my understanding of crypto is it's just there. You don't control the supply of crypto like you do money for M1, M2. So then you can't control inflation or deflation or stagflation if you're from the 70s with the gas lines. So I'm kind of studying that helmet from that particular part. Yeah, China always try to do their own thing. China's a little bit, they're not a little bit. They like to control. They're authoritarian government. So they want to do that. So yeah, so I'm kind of studying it from that point. But once again, I'm actually going to do the 200 attacks on crypto and blockchain. There was some, of course, it was people were spinning up coins like water. One of the small coins got took over, right? Because you don't have enough blocks. So if I spin up more blocks on Amazon, I could take over a smaller coin operator. So I'm gonna talk about that in a video probably tomorrow. Some attacks on crypto. For me, crypto's a young man's game, Helvin. I'm trying to get a little real estate, a little stocks, but it's hot. I wouldn't be scared of it. I'm just a little old to be dipping in crypto from a financial stock, but definitely from a security spot because I think blockchain from a compliance part, because theoretically it's supposed to be immutable. You can't change it unless the other people vote on it, or you get a certain level of them to agree with your chain, right? So that'd be perfect for logs. So nobody can go and erase logs, change transactions, and then from a financial, they're doing those financial contracts. From that, especially security compliance, I like the feel of what that feels like for that. Limiting access to information. We just talked about that. Reduce the threat against. Only those who must use the data should be granted. Should be limited to only what they need to do their job. Methods for limiting access. Technology based file permissions. Procedure prohibiting document removal permission. So, so we talked about that. Least privileges. I'm putting that with limiting. Facts. So yeah. So like I said, I like it from a security standpoint. Um, Crypto diversity. This sounds cool, but I don't know anybody doing diversity. Closely related to layering. Layers must be different or diverse. If attacker penetrates one layer, the same technique will be useful to break through other layers. Breaching one security layer does not compromise the whole system. Using security products from different manufacturings. I'm going to say that once again. Using security products from different manufacturing groups are responsible for regulating, access, and controlling diversities are different. So if I was used to big one, Cisco routers. I'm not getting Juniper. I can't afford the Cisco guys. Why would I buy a whole new router to add to it? I mean, so diversity is cool, but at a certain level, you got to pick something and get somebody because they got to maintain it, right? So if I pick Cisco as the 800-pound gorilla, I'm not buying any other equipment because those guys by themselves make six figures. So I'm gonna have a Cisco guy and a Juniper guy. Nah, that so diversity is cool at some level, but at some level you need to streamline too to make it simple. We a Cisco shop, we a Juniper shop, we a AWS shop, we a Azure shop. That's our main focus. That's how we get talent, and that's how we're gonna pay our talent. Obscurity inside details to outside, not revealing details, type of computer, operating system, brand of software used, difficult to attack, to devise if the system details are known. Yeah, so a lot of times when I do a quality scan on SSL, then probably 40% of the times as I scan the web server, it tells me what web server it's on. So when I scan it, it should just say this SSL good. It shouldn't tell me I'm on a Apache 9.1.3, right? Or I'm on IIS 7.8.5. Because what happens if I get that information from I perceive a very benign scan. If I know what server you are, what? I'm going to look at CVEs, and if that server's not patched up right, that number is going to tell me the CVEs that I can attack on that server to get to your server, right? I did a one on Panera Bread, and it gave me the server and I looked up the server. The server was 3 years old, and it told me every attack I could do on Panera Bread server to take it over, right? So so obscurity is when you scan that stuff. I don't tell you the web server, app server, or even the database name, right? I obscure that information. Or if you clever, if it's an IS server, I tell you it's an Apache server, right? So now you start doing attacks on a software that doesn't exist, right? So I'm gonna do more than obfuscate it. I'm gonna try to send you down a wrong direction, right? So that's simplicity. This is my favorite one. A lot of times I used to think you had to do something complex and super different. Then when I figured that out, I figured out a lot of guys were just putting together stuff they read about and they didn't really understand how it would interact with each other. So that's why I'm much bigger on simplicity, right? Nature of information security is complex. Complex security systems can be difficult to understand and troubleshoot, are often compromised for ease of use by trusted users. A secure system should be simple from the inside but complex from the outside. Right. So that's my take on simplicity. There's so many things people read about now. There's so many things that are out there. Right. So frameworks, I'm real big on frameworks. Industry standard frameworks and reference architecture provides a resource how to create a secure IT environment, increasing overall program structure and security management guidelines to implement and maintain an effective security program. Various framework and architecture specific to a particular sector, industry specific. Of course, we've been talking about zero trust, right? It's pushed from the government. It's for the federal, right? That's what the government's pushing from a framework such as industry, financial. Such frameworks and architecture are domestic, while others are worldwide. Like yeah, there's three-tiered architecture was worldwide for forever. Now, right? So three-tier just morphed into zero trust, right? It's three-tier with a whole bunch of stuff added on, right? So that's it. I just wanted to kind of just go through some Security Plus slides. I'll hang on and see if anybody got any more questions. I want to give a shout out to everybody that came out. Like I said, I might start doing this on Saturday. Just kind of going through some chapters. For a lot of you who don't really know, I'm actually a professor in real life at a local university. So the professor part in my name is for real. So I've been teaching for going on 10 years now. I'm thinking about retiring. I'm getting old. The cool thing about teaching though, I just reached out. I think my grandkids could go for free. So if my grandkids could go for free, I might keep teaching. Thanks, Maddox. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, I might pick this time Sunday at 3 and just kind of knock some stuff out. Well, until football season started, I might have to switch the time. I love football, man. So, but I'm glad y'all enjoyed it, and I'll probably definitely do it again. Like I said, I'm going to hang on a little longer, see if anybody got any questions. And two is any comments on any videos. I try to answer all my comments. Then two is my name is ProfessorBlackOps, all one word, at gmail.com. If you go to my channel and look in there, you'll see that actually in my email name. I try to look at that every other day. I get busy sometimes. I appreciate it, Maddox. I appreciate it. Yeah, so like I said, get it started. Like I said, I think it's 12 chapters, and I'll probably put those all in a playlist so they all be together so you can go back and review them and go through the security plus slides. And two is I'm going to start labbing. They have labs for Wireshark, Nmap on a Linux, so I'll probably pick another day and start spinning those up on AWS so we can get the feel of AWS and running those tools like Maddox talked about. Make sure you don't have some open to the internet that shouldn't be open, like your database, so we can show you how to scan that with Nmap or Wireshark to get those locked down. Helmet, me too. That's cool. So I'm looking to get an AWS or Azure certificate. Should I focus on one or both? I'm starting with the basics. Actually, I'm starting with the basics. I'm gonna do a website. I'm starting with where's my book? I think it's Certified Cloud Security Professional. It's the basics, and it's kind of for both of those. I usually pick one. I'm gonna pick AWS, even though Azure getting a lot of love. I'm gonna take the AWS practitioner, then I'm gonna try to take the associate architect helmet. I need to go back and look at the flow, but off the top of my head, I'm studying. Maddox, I'm too old, man. I can't study both of those. That's a young man game. But to be honest, I'm actually gonna study a little Azure because you gotta be comfortable with both because I think a lot of companies gonna do AWS for stuff they develop in house, and I think of course, they're gonna use AWS for Office 365 and the whole Office suite. So I think most companies gonna kind of focus on a little bit of both. Do both. True. B-Dub, I love the channel. Very informative stuff. Sparked my interest in cyber. I have two. Sweet. AW, I'm in development now. What certs or pass would you recommend I take to start in cyber? I would do the AWS practitioner from AWS. Then they got the associate architect. I don't know if you're a B-Dub. I don't know if you're setting up your VPCs and your networking, controlling your traffic, spinning up. Because AWS has so much. I'm just trying to start off with 3-tier, zero trust on AWS as a developer. So long story short, B-Dub, and I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna take a Java app and I'm gonna put it in AWS and I'm gonna lock it down for federal level DoD compliance. So that's gonna be some of the channels things I'm gonna do coming forward. How much they're both the big dogs on the block now. See a little bit of true game. Yeah, that's now you right. If you especially if you get the architect stuff or even the development stuff, if you Google that, I know the Azure and the AWS, both of those were mid six figures, like 125 and 130 for both AWS and Azure. Google's creeping up there. I just not a big Google fan. I'm actually going to interview a Google security guy on my channel. I was supposed to doing it, but my company made me go back full time. So I'm kind of grumpy. I gotta go back to work full time. I think they're gonna start letting me work remote in a couple months, back the way it was. But that's a story for another day. So yeah, those are the big three. Google's getting a lot of love, but and it seems like Google pays the most when you Google the cloud. But I believe they pay the most because there's not a lot of guys out there that have those certifications. So I need to do a little more investigating on that. Okay, I have the part and other one outside of I have the outside of where do you recommend I start? Ooh. If you got the architect, you got the associate architect. Which one you got, B Dub? You got the AWS associate architect. All facts, man. I'm staying away from watching the fights and drama. You know, the manosphere, we always trying to get more women, more peace leave. I'm too old for all that, man. I'm trying to focus on this money. Everything else will take care of itself, man. I agree with you, man. We little too much drama, man. Even though I do love a good O'Shea video for my little entertainment before I get back to study. I would take the next one, B Dub, and keep going up on the architect. Are you work? Do you do AWS for a living, or are you just getting a search and trying to get into cybersecurity? To get into IT, I said cybersecurity. Trying to get into IT. Are you trying to get into IT or cybersecurity, or doesn't matter? Oh yeah. So yeah, my contract's ending the year, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm about to do. I got some feelers out, so I might go work for AWS. Some of my ex colleagues work for AWS because federal compliance is kind of a new thing, not a new thing for them, but they need a lot of that too because they're trying to get out of the government money. Because remember the Jedi contract was voided, so that's $10 billion out there. So I think they're gonna spread it around between AWS, Azure, Google, Rackspace, and some smaller players because they want to keep everybody in there, get that Jedi money. I love web development. BW, you just got to kind of figure out what you want to do. Of course, the architects make more money, especially if you web developer. You kind of understand purple team and how that works. So I would trying to do the architect. I would do the security plus before I do the CCNA. Um, are you trying to get into security or are you just trying to make money? I would just become an architect. With the web development and the social architect, I would just go be an architect for my firm. I would do a security plus because everybody loves security because you want to make sure you're architecting your web apps in a secure way, of course. So I would probably do the security plus because the CCNA, unless you're gonna focus on networking, and two is you're gonna be working with somebody that's gonna configure the VPC for you in AWS. So I would probably just focus on the architect, probably add security plus. Like I said, everybody likes to make sure their app is being secure. Um, oh, I think so too. I think they need to spread the Jedi around too, helmet. No, I agree with that. And two is it helps our nation because you got that much money. You're hiring people. You making sure they got a ton of R&D in both. All three of those do a ton of R&D. Creating their own database, creating their own encryption, doing big things. So yeah, spreading that money around from the Jedi contract, I think is actually good for the nation. Maddox got Network Plus and CNA at the same time and go security. I see that, Maddox. I guess for me in the cloud a lot of times, especially if you focus on the cloud with the VPC stuff, that's kind of a little easier to do than the CNA part. But most of those companies, if you look at them, they actually take their on-prem and actually link it to their AWS VPC, so it actually looks like one network. So that probably would be Network Plus and CCNA. So that's true. You're welcome, B-Dub. So I think that's it for me, fellas. I'm glad everybody came out. Like I said, I'll probably do this Sunday until football come. I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm going to do the next version of Security Plus, and I'll probably put them all in the playlist. That was good advice, Maddox. Everybody have a good Sunday. Like I said, reach out to me. Yeah, the Google Cloud service, it's unique. The crazy thing is, I don't know anybody in the Google Cloud to begin with. And I probably got like 20 people I hang out with. But site-to-site VPN to VPC or Azure. Site-to-site VPN to VPC or Azure, because a lot of people are actually both. I'm going to say both, Max, because if you're doing Office 365, you're actually going to sync your on-prem Active Directory to your cloud prem, the Azure AFDS. You're going to sync both of those so you can have single sign-on. Everybody's doing that. So probably both of those. Because like I said, everybody's syncing it to the Azure ADFS to your Active Directory to get you to have single sign-on. I know everybody's using that. So that's the ploy. Everybody have a good weekend. Happy Monday. Lab every day. Let's get this bag and comment on the video. Like it. I'm glad everybody came out. We definitely going to do it again.